What's up guys, this is Zach with Top Deck Nation, and today we're going to be continuing our Burning Shadows coverage with another post-rotation deck in the standard format, and that is going to be Drampa-GX Zoroark. So just to give you guys a little bit of backstory on this deck, a really good player named Daniel Altavilla, he originally made the deck and he piloted it to a third place finish at the Wisconsin Regional Championships just a couple months ago. So it was actually kind of born in response to the traditional Garbodor Drampa decks. So it was really focused on psychic types, and so I'm guessing Daniel kind of realized, I'm already playing double colorless energy, why not replace the Garbodors with something like Zoroark, which actually resists psychic. And so Garbodor has a hard time actually one-shotting not only Zoroark but the break as well. So this was definitely kind of like a hard counter, a hard response to that traditional build of Garbodor. So that gives you just a little idea about the deck, but we are going to kind of look into it today. This is a post-rotation build, so it does have cards like Guzma and Acerola and even Potown, which is a pretty new, interesting addition here. But without further ado guys, the main attacker of this deck of course is going to be Zoroark. It has that really good stand-in ability that lets you switch it to the active from your bench once per turn. So not only is this good just to get Zoroark active, but if you have a Float Stone on Zoroark, you can actually stand in and then retreat to a secondary attacker such as Drampa, Tapu Koko, or Tapu Lele-GX for example. So Zoroark's doing a lot of damage with Mind Jack for a single DCE or 2 colorless energy. It's doing 10 damage plus 30 more for each of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So there are some scenarios where Zoroark is just doing massive amounts of damage for a single attachment. If your opponent has 5 Pokemon on the bench, so they have a full bench basically, that's going to be doing 10 plus 150, so 160 already, and a Choice Band is going to add an additional 30 to make it 190. So, and that's enough damage to knock out most Pokemon in the format like Volcanion EX and Darkrai EX, Tapu Lele GX. So just in general, that attack is really good. And then once you factor in Professor Kukui, that adds up to 210 damage potentially. So that's enough to knock out things like Espeon, Umbreon, a lot of your evolution GXs. So Zoroark's really good on its own, but it does have low HP. So we are playing the break. So it adds a little more HP, makes it a little bulkier, better against the Trashlanch Garbodor. But this foul play attack is really why we're playing it. So for 1 energy, it says choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack. So this is really strong. You can copy a GX attack, so that makes it even better. But if you've already used your GX attack, or you've already foul played once with the GX attack, you can't really do that again. So keep that in mind. You can only use 1 GX attack per game, even if you're using foul play. But there are just so many possibilities with this attack. I remember at the North American International Championships, I piloted Greninja, and I ran into this matchup, and besides the Giratina promo, which really just kind of shut off my deck, I was trading 2 shots with my opponent, but the Zoroark Break was using foul play to also use Moonlight Slash. So as you can see, just really a number of instances it could copy something like Volcanic Heat with Volcanion EX, add a Choice Band and a Professor Kukui, and suddenly you can one-shot the Volcanion EX. So lots of really good uses there. And as far as the other attacker of the deck, we are just kind of focused on Drampa-GX. I have seen some decks play 3, but I think 2 is a pretty suitable count here. We're playing a couple of Rescue Stretcher just in case we need to get those back in a pinch. And our main attacker is Zoroark, so I think Drampa, does the job as a secondary attacker in this deck. But it has 3 attacks here. They're all pretty darn good. We have Righteous Edge doing 20 damage, discarding a special energy. Now, Double Dragon is rotating, but we do have DCE left in the format and Rainbow Energy, both of which are probably going to be seeing some extensive play in the next format, especially in mirror matches. So Righteous Edge is really good with a Choice Band. It's doing 50 damage to an EX or GX, so that's really good. We also have Berserk, so it's really your kind of cleanup attack here. It's doing 80 damage, and if your bench Pokemon has any damage counters on them, it is 70 more. So if my Zoroark is damaged from, say, Potown, for example, Berserk is going to be doing 150, and then of course that's before any kind of modifiers, so I can add Choice Band and Professor Kukui and essentially one-shot a lot of my opponent's Pokemon. Now, the final attack is more or less a setup attack. You really want to pull this off on your first or second turn, and that's going to be Big Will GX. So shuffle your hand in your deck and draw 10 cards. So this deck is already pretty darn consistent as is. We're playing 3 Tapu Lele, a ton of supporter cards, but the Big Will GX really takes it to the next level because either you're going to get 10 cards and pretty much get set up, or your opponent has to play an in, so you're forcing that on them, and you're going to be getting a hand of 6. So either way, you're kind of setting up, and that's why I think Drampa makes a really good addition to this deck. We're also playing a copy of the Tapu Koko. Not only does it have free retreat, which is pretty good if our float stones are field blowered off, but flying flip for a single DCE, it's doing 20 to all of your opponent's Pokemon. So with a choice band doing 50 to active, 20 to everything else. This is just a good setup attack just to get damage on the board. Maybe you're setting up for a Mind Jack or a Berserk. We're also playing one Oranguru, and that instruct ability is going to be helping us throughout the game. Once during your turn, draw until you have 3 cards in your hand. Now, a lot of decks, they just don't have room for luxury cards like this, but I think Oranguru really fits in here. Daniel Altavia played a copy of it. I've seen a number of high-profile players play a copy of it, and I think it makes sense just because you're going to be thinning your hand down pretty much every turn. So being able to draw a couple extra cards per turn is really nice, and then it kind of prevents your opponent from hurting you in the late game with those late game ends. And then finally, we're playing 3 copies of Tapu Lele. That Wonder Tag ability is just really good, being able to search for a supporter, and we're playing a ton of supporters, as you can see here. We're playing, it looks like upwards of, I think, 18 supporters, if my math is correct. So, I mean, that is a lot of supporters, or it looks like maybe 16, but we're playing a lot of supporters here, a lot of one-of supporters, especially like Fan Club and Acerola and Brigette. So, really good to have. I think 3 is a good solid count for Tapu Lele going forward. Now, speaking of the supporters, we're playing our standard counts and some additions here from the new set. We're playing 4 Sycamore and 4 in just to make sure we draw cards pretty consistently throughout the game. We're playing the standard count of 1 Brigette and 1 Fan Club. This is what Daniel Altavia played and kind of standardized in the deck. There are uses for each one. Brigette is great early game. I can search out something like 2 Zoroark and a Drampa, or Zoroark, Drampa, or Oranguru, just any combination that I need. But Fan Club does have its uses as well, so it adds it to the hand. So if you need a Tapu Lele for next turn, maybe you can Fan Club for the Drampa and the Tapu Lele, and that way you can actually keep that Tapu Lele in your hand and have a supporter the following turn. So just an extra boost of consistency there. We're also playing 2 copies of Professor Kukui, and again, this is one of those decks that actually, in my opinion, gets better after the rotation, just because I can take those Versus Seekers out and those cards that are rotating, like Team Magma's base, and I can actually replace them with thicker counts of supporter cards, and the main strategy is still intact. I mean, nothing really rotated from this deck. Everything, I believe, is breakthrough on to begin with, so the deck doesn't really lose anything compared to some other decks, so that really helps it going forward into this breakthrough on format. So in addition, we're also playing 3 Guzma, and Guzma is going to be really clutch in those situations where maybe you have the knockout, but you just can't hit the active. You want to hit the bench, so you can just Guzma, and of course your Tapu Koko is free retreat, or your Zoroark has a float stone on it, so really good just to kind of get those cheap knockouts, especially with Zoroark, because it's already doing such a ton of damage with a choice band. So I think Guzma is really good in here. And then finally Acerola, and this is just a nice one-of to scoop up something. Maybe we want to recycle that DCE and put it on something else. So it's really just a disruptive card and a healing card at the same time. Now, our stadium of choice here is actually going to be Potown. It's going to be replacing the traditional Team Magma secret base that was pretty popular. Normally, Team Magma's secret base, it put 20 damage on a basic when you put it down, but Potown is a little bit different. Basically, you have to evolve your Pokemon, and it puts 30 damage on it. So maybe the card developers thought Team Magma's base was just a little bit too good with Drampa, so they made Potown instead, so it's a little more balanced. But the downside of that is that with Zoroark Break, you're actually evolving twice, so you're evolving from Zorua to Zoroark, and then from Zoroark to the Break. So Potown is actually going to hit you twice and take 60 damage, so just kind of make sure that you're not taking a lot of damage, because then Zoroark is kind of a liability, because it's, you know, losing 60 HP, it's going to be dropped down to 80 HP, so just kind of be careful about that. But I think a couple copies is really all you need here. It's just a nice secondary effect to put damage on the board. And as far as our items here, we're playing pretty standard counts of stuff here. We're playing 4 Ultra Ball, 3 Choice Band just to add that damage, 3 Float Stone just to make sure we can stand in and retreat, or if something is stuck in the active, such as Oranguru, maybe in the later game, you're out of Zoroarks, always good to have there. Special Charge just because it can recycle our DCEs just in case they get discarded. 2 Rescue Stretcher because we need to recover our Pokemon. I think Rescue Stretcher is just a much better alternative to Super Rod because of that second option. You can just go to the discard and get it directly back to your hand. I think that's really, really good. And we're already playing Special Charge anyway, so energy, recovering our energy shouldn't really be a concern. We're also playing 2 Field Blower just to counter that Garbotox and Garbodor, as well as some other tools and stadiums we might encounter, like Float Stone and Choice Band, Fighting Fury Belt, and then stadiums as well. So Field Blower is definitely a staple of most decks at this point. And the energy count here, we're just playing 10 energy, 6 dark, and 4 DCE. So that is going to pretty much wrap up this list, guys. I've been testing it on PTCGO. I found it to be really consistent. You rarely have a dead hand with this deck, and that's what I really love about it. Between Tapu Lele and Oranguru, just a really thick count of supporters. You really shouldn't whiff in the deck. You've also got Big Will GX just in case you do. So either way, you draw 10 cards or your opponent ends you to 6. So yeah, I mean, it's not really a deck that loses anything going forward, and I think it's really consistent and aggressive at the same time. But with that said, let's go ahead and jump into a game I played on PTCGO and see the deck in action. Okay guys, looks like we will go ahead and get started here. So right off the bat, it looks like we both mulligan, so not all that great, but I didn't really have much anyway. But I see I'm starting with a Zorua, so preferably I'd say you want to start with something like Drampa, just so you can Righteous Edge, or use Big Will GX if you need to. But I do have an Ultra Ball, so it's not the worst thing in the world. I can always Ultra Ball for Brigette, possibly get Tapu Lele or Drampa or something like that. I guess Tapu Lele is not really searchable with Brigette because it goes to the bench. So maybe Drampa and a Zorua and a Oranguru. And Oranguru is just going to let me draw an extra card or 2. But, I do have Fan Club as well. Fan Club might be a better option because then I can at least get another Tapu Lele for the following turn. So we'll just have to see what happens here. But it looks like my opponent's having a pretty decent start here. He's getting a Trubbish, and he's got the Garbotox and Garbodor ready to go just in case something happens. But my hand isn't amazing. I'm probably just going to have to go for that Brigette. So I'm going to play Field Blower. And in hindsight, this was probably a bit of a misplay. Maybe I didn't notice that the Garbotox and Garbodor was coming down. But the following turn, if he plays a Float Stone or something on the Garbodor, he will shut off my abilities, and there's not much I can do about that. So in hindsight, maybe I shouldn't play the Field Blower, but I think my logic behind it was I need to really thin my hand down, and that way I can use a Oranguru to draw a couple cards. So, yeah. And it looks like I will go ahead and Brigette, so I really need to get Drampa out, as well as maybe another Zoroark, because I think that this one is going to get knocked out the following turn. And then a Oranguru, of course, just to draw those cards. But this matchup will be kind of interesting. It's not exactly a mirror match just because he's playing Garbodor and I'm playing Zoroark, so I'd have to give the edge to my deck just because it's a little bit tougher to knock out the Zoroark, and of course the break can always copy that Trash Lynch attack as well. But the Garbotox and Garbodor, that is really going to be the deciding factor for this game. He's already got it out turn 2, so he already has a really impressive early game. And he's got 2 energy on this Drampa as well, so he's going to be knocking out the Zorua. And it looks like this might actually be a post-rotation deck. If you've been playing on PTCGO, you'll notice that most of the decks are at post-rotation, so it's a little bit annoying if you're trying to test for the post-rotation. Maybe you're testing for an upcoming format, such as Expanded or something like that. But, it's just a little bit annoying, but that's okay. And it looks like he does have Potown, so it is going to be damaging my Zoroark. But actually, I don't really mind that very much because that way Drampa can take advantage of it with Berserk. Now, as you can see here, my hand is pretty bad. I had a Tapu Lele, so normally it would be pretty good, but Garbotoxin is activated, so can't really do much about that. But I will go ahead and use Big Will GX. So again, kind of puts a psychological component to the game because it kind of forces your opponent to play that in. So regardless if he plays the in or not, I should get a decent hand the following turn, hopefully. But the hand I use Big Will GX to get into, it looks like it's a pretty good hand, but a lot of supporters. I don't want to have to Sycamore that much stuff away. But, you know, my opponent is pretty much set up here. He's got the Rainbow Energy on the Trubbish. So now Drampa is doing 150 damage. So with a Choice Band, he'll be taking that knockout. But he's actually going to opt to use Righteous Edge and knock off that DCE. So not really a big fan of that. I feel like there's going to be a lot of Righteous Edges between us because we're going to both, you know, constantly do that until somebody can't really use it anymore. And then somebody else can use Berserk and hopefully stream those attacks. So I'm going to use Righteous Edge and knock off his DCE. And there's only one in his discard, one in my discard, so pretty even at this point. He is up a prize, but that shouldn't really matter too much. I think what I can do is let these two Zoroarks attack. That'll put me down to 3 prizes, and then I can just attack with a couple of the Drampas. So essentially making my opponent take a 7 prize game here. And that's one of the big benefits you have when you're playing a deck that has so many single prize attackers. You can kind of set it up so your opponent has to take 7 prizes instead of 6. We are going to be seeing that in, and that's fine with me because I didn't really have a whole lot, but I do find an in off of that, so that's good. Rescue Stretcher's not really going to be helping. I think it's just a Zorua in the discard, but I can use Special Charge to get back that DCE. That might come in handy. And I'm just kind of curious if my opponent plays a Special Charge. I would guess he does, but if he doesn't, that might give me another advantage looking at the later game. So right now, I don't really have a whole lot here. I don't really want to Guzma anything out. Kukui's not really doing much, so I will play an N. I get a DCE, but I do whiff the Choice Band. So if I had the Choice Band, that would actually be a knockout because my Zoroarks are damaged. I can DCE the Drampa, but again, it's not really doing a whole lot. And you know, I could use Mind Jack with Zoroark, but again, that's still not doing enough damage. So I think the game plan for the following turn is to just go ahead and attach that DCE and use Berserk, assuming he doesn't knock it out. But he's going to play a Guzma instead, and he brings up Oranguru. So maybe he just didn't really have a whole lot. I don't know. We see the Special Charge, so he did play one. And so I'm wondering what he's going to be attacking with now because the Drampa is taking a knockout. Maybe he wants to go with Garbodor instead. But he's going to go for the Righteous Edge on Drampa. So, I mean, he's really kind of lacking cards right now. So this might be a good play. It might be a good opening. So I have the DCE. I have the Field Blower. So I can knock off that Float Stone and Mind Jack. And I'm also going to get rid of Potown just in case. I've already got damage on the board. Don't really care about that. But I think that will be a knockout. It's doing 160, so just enough to get that knockout. And I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of the Fan Club in my hand to get Tapu Lele for the following turn. So hopefully he won't play down another Float Stone on that Garbodor. That'll put us in a lot of trouble if he does. So now I am actually up in prizes. My board is looking pretty good. I've got a couple of Zoroark. And as you can see there, I haven't even really played a lot of items. I think I've played like 4 items. So his Garbodor can't even take a knockout. And this is why I was telling you that Zoroark is such a good card against that matchup. He's only doing 60 damage, and that's not enough. So he'll be able to survive another turn and probably take another knockout there. So at this point, I'm just kind of wondering what I should do. I could go for the, I think I could go for the Garbotoxin Garbodor, but I think I'm actually whiffing the energy to do that because I don't have any kind of free retreater. So I might have to just Sycamore away these Guzmas, and I really don't want to do that, but I might just have to. Or I could just wait until the following turn. So I think I'm just going to Mind Jack. Let's get rid of that Garbodor with the Trash Avalanche attack. But I do have a feeling that this Zoroark is going to go down. So Righteous Edge is doing just enough damage to knock it out. Now, if I have a DCE and a Choice Band, again, I could try to pull off that combo and knock out the Drampa in one hit, but if I don't, I am going to be in a lot of trouble. So I probably could have had it the next turn. I could have thinned down my deck with Ultra Ball and Sycamore, but he played an N, and that's really going to hurt me a lot. Now, the upside to that is that I can bring up something like Drampa or even the Zoroark Break, since it copies attacks, and I can just Righteous Edge the Drampa. And I'm thinking that might be the better play, because that does kind of set up the 7 prize game like I wanted. I draw a Float Stone. I don't even know if I want to play it, but I think I'm probably going to have to, just in case this Zoroark's knocked out. So I'll go ahead and end my opponent down, probably a little bit disruptive for him as well. And I think the best play here is to use Righteous Edge. I can actually foul play in Berserk for 150, but it's not doing enough damage by itself. So I'm just going to knock off the DCE and force him to keep drawing into what he needs. So that Float Stone is gone, unfortunately. Maybe another option in this deck might be a third Field Blower. Maybe you could cut down a couple cards, because this deck really does struggle against the Garbotoxin Garbodor. But then again, I kind of misplayed and got rid of the first one on the first turn. So maybe 2 is, pretty satisfactory there. So another Garbotoxin, or another Trash Avalanche Garbodor, I should say. And I don't even think he's knocking it out. I think he's still short. Yeah, he's still short. So we're playing our items conservatively, and he still couldn't knock out Zoroark, and I should be able to take a prize on this one as well. And you can see my opponent's getting a little upset there. I'm sure I would be too if I'm short 10 damage. So I could go for the Guzma, but I'm not even sure if I'm doing enough damage to knock out the Guzma. So I think I'm just going to go for the Trash Avalanche, and I'm pretty sure my opponent's played a lot of items, so we'll go ahead and Trash Avalanche for a whopping 260 damage for 1 energy. So again, this Drampa should be able to knock out the Zoroark pretty easily, but I do have another Drampa ready to go, and it's going to Righteous Edge, hopefully. But it is going to put my opponent in a pretty good position, because I don't really have much on my board besides a Drampa with 1 energy. So if he can find that Choice Band or something, maybe he could knock out the Drampa. But that Drampa on his side of the board does have a Float Stone, so I don't really think he could take a knockout. Maybe like a Professor Kukui or something. But he doesn't even have damage on his side of the board, actually, so Berserk's not even really doing much. So I guess I'll put down another Zorua just in case. I'm just kind of thinning my hand down. I get 2 Choice Band, but no DCE. So again, Righteous Edge, discard the DCE, but not really doing what I need it to. So down comes another Trubbish. So maybe he's trying to play that 7 prize card game as well. And he's going to retreat, and I think he's going to respond back with a Righteous Edge. So this puts me in a really weird position where he could easily win the game if he just gets that DCE. I do get a Sycamore, and I also get a Potown, so I don't think Potown's really helping. The Rescue Stretcher can actually get me another Zoroark back, so I might do that to kind of set up another break, but I'm really kind of whiffing the energy and the cards I need to take this knockout on Drampa. I was really hoping off of that Sycamore I could get at least 1 DCE, but yeah, I couldn't really do anything. And I think I might have misclicked and just kind of passed instead. Maybe I was thinking that he can't use Berserk or something if I don't attack this one. So if he retreats to the bench and tries to Berserk, but it doesn't really matter. I don't really know what I was thinking there. Probably just a misclick or something. But there is a Berserk for 150, and he goes down to 1 prize card. So we're in a lot of trouble here. Yeah, I'm not even sure what to do here. I guess I could Righteous Edge with the Zoroark. If I have a Dark Energy on Zoroark, I think I can actually pull off the win if I have a Choice Band again, but that's still asking for quite a bit when there's not much left in the deck. So I'm looking through, all of my Choice Band are gone, So I'm going to be stuck using Righteous Edge and just kind of hoping and praying that my opponent doesn't have like a Guzma or something else. I guess he really just needs a DCE. Yeah, I guess the Guzma is kind of irrelevant. He has damage on the bench, so I'll retreat to the honestly, I don't even know if Zoroark is the best option. I think maybe the other Drampa, because then it kind of forces him to have to need a Choice Band as well. Yeah, I think Drampa is actually bulkier, so I think that's the best play. I'm going to Righteous Edge, and we're going to see what he does now. So most of his DCE should be gone, at least 3 of them, I think. So I don't know if he can even pull off the Berserk. And if he happens to, that's fine, because he needs a Choice Band. So he needs quite a bit, in other words. So we're going to see what he does, but it's definitely coming to a close here, guys. Could definitely swing either way. So it looks like he's just kind of contemplating everything. He's going to play a Guzma and bring up the Tapu Lele, so maybe that's a sign that he doesn't really have exactly what he needs. And I don't even think I've played a lot of items, so even if he brings up the Trashlanch Garbodor, I still don't think that's a knockout. But there's a Choice Band, an Energy, and he's going to Acid Spray for 40, so not doing enough, but I've got the Guzma and the DCE, so I think I can actually knock it out with Berserk and take the game, guys. So yeah, I will Berserk, take the knockout. So that was a really close game, and as you can see, those type of mirror matches where it's Drampa versus Drampa, very, very close. Even the Garbodor versus Zoroark, it comes really just down to who can Righteous Edge at the right time, who can get set up. But yeah, I mean, really close game, really good game to record. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. We're going to have more Burning Shadows coverage as usual. Let me know in the comments what kind of decks you want to see, if there's any changes you make to this deck. But in the meantime, this has been Zach with Top Deck Nation. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you tomorrow as always.